Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we're going to discuss our 2023 garden fertilizing plan. Let's get going. Learning when to fertilize will increase your garden production exponentially. So today we're just going to go over our plan for fertilizing our gardens this summer. Before we start though, I just wanted to review a few things to consider when you make your summer fertilizing plan. So the first thing I would do if I was making a garden plan is to decide if I want to use organic or synthetic fertilizers. Now, the difference between the two predominantly comes down to how long it takes for the necessary ingredients to be made available to your plants. If you're using organic fertilizer, it's going to take upwards of 2 weeks for the NP and K to be available to your plants. If you use synthetic fertilizers, it's going to take roughly a day or so, as the synthetic fertilizers are usually in a form that your plants can process. All you have to do is worry about the fertilizer settling in and having enough nutrients around the roots themselves to be able to absorb the fertilizer. The second thing you'll need to do to make your fertilizer routine is going to be set a schedule. Now, this schedule is going to vary depending on what type of fertilizer you decide on using, but I cannot stress this enough. Get yourself a calendar, find out how often you need to fertilize, and make sure you write those dates down. And for me, I put it on my calendar, and I also upload a schedule to my phone so that a timer will go off with a note telling me today is a day to fertilize. Now, the final tip I'm going to give today when it comes to making your own plan for fertilizing is just to remember one simple thing: less is more. Now, regardless of what type of soil you have, whether you plant in ground, whether you plant in buckets, or whether you have raised beds like we do here on the homestead, when you go to fertilize, it's always best to start off using at least half, maybe even less if it's a new fertilizer. We usually start off with half strength on the fertilizers to go from there. Especially important if you're using synthetic, as a lot of the synthetic fertilizers can burn your plants. You make them go yellow, and in extreme cases can even burn the roots up and kill the plant totally. Now, that does not mean that organic fertilizers can't. For example, our chickens, if we were to take the chicken litter and put it directly on our plants, it would burn it up because it has a lot of nitrogen. So I always recommend any gardener who's using a new fertilizer, read the instructions, divide what they tell you to use in half, and you're going to be safe. I've never seen it where you use half strength fertilizer and you didn't get good results. Okay, with all of that out of the way, let's discuss our plan for fertilizing here on the homestead. We'll start with the fertilizers that we've chosen. Now, we choose to use organic fertilizers, and what that means is we're going to have to be very proactive when it comes to using these. So our approach is we're going to use a long-term granule fertilizer, and we will put that in June, August, and October. You only have to do it every 8 weeks. Put it on there, make sure you don't put it on your plants, put it between them on the ground, and then you kind of water it in. The second fertilizer we will use every 2 weeks, and it's going to be a fish emulsion. Now, this is a water soluble fertilizer. You just put it and mix it in a can, and then you water your plants with it. So this needs to be done every 2 weeks. So the way we do this is when we go to plant our nightshades, which this year is looking as the 2nd week of May, I'll mark that date, and every 2 weeks from there, I will do all of our gardens. The second part of our fertilizing plan this year is going to come down to compost. Now, most of the compost work has already been done this year. We've made sure to put about 3 inches of fresh organic compost on top of all of our beds, and we work them into the soil. What this does is it adds a huge boost to the microbes and things that are living in there. As the soil started warming up, we put ours in February, so they've had several months, the microbes, to multiply and get ready for the summertime to break down that organic fertilizer we're going to use. Now, the part that comes into the summer part of our fertilizing plan is I've saved a load of compost that I'm going to use right after we plant our nightshades. So we did put in, about 3 inches, as I said, in the early part of the spring or late winter, however you want to see it. The important part for this to know is what we're going to do is once we finish and get our nightshades in and there's no more to plant, I'm going to go through each of our beds and put in only about a ½ inch of fresh organic compost. What this will end up doing for us is it's going to add, number one, it'll add a little bit of depth to our beds after the planting season for anything that might have got taken out whenever our spring plants came out. The other thing it'll do is it's going to add fresh food for all of the microbes and organisms that are living in our beds. This is just going to kickstart them so that when we start adding all that fertilizer, it's going to make sure that it's broken down in a timely process so that when our plants need them, it's there for it. The last and perhaps most important part of our fertilizing routine this year is going to be work our fertilizing into our water regiment. The reason I say this is we have quite a bit of garden space here on the homestead, and it can be really daunting anytime you try to do everything in one day. So because we already have our watering plan broken down into 3 parts so that every day we do a different garden, I plan on doing my fertilizing routine the exact same. So for example, if it's the week to go ahead and fertilize all the gardens, what I'll do is I will substitute watering that day for using the liquid fertilizer. Also, what I'll do is the days whenever it's time for the every couple months to put the granulized fertilizer in, I will do that before I water, and I'll only do the gardens that I'm watering that day. So again, to use the old garden as an example, when the time comes, instead of doing all 3 gardens and working the soil in all 3 of them, I'll just go through that morning, I'll put the granule fertilizer out, gently work it into the soil, and then I'll water it in. The reason I do this is I want to make sure, number one, that I get everything done. As I said, I put it on my calendar to get done, but I need to make sure that I don't miss any dates. But I also want to make sure that I'm setting myself up for success and I don't have something that's so daunting that I'm not going to want to do it. And if I'm trying to tell myself I have to do every one of our gardens in one day from a fertilizer standpoint, that's a lot of time commitment for that single day. However, if I work it in with my watering schedule where I'm only doing 1 garden each day, that cuts the time in a third and it makes it a lot more manageable. As always, we appreciate all you folks who watch. Till next time, I hope you all take care of yourselves. Peace.